Stories matter. Many stories matter. Stories have been used to dispossess and to malign, but stories can also be used to empower and to humanize. Stories can break the dignity of people, but stories can also repair that broken dignity. How? The influence Hollywood has on society and our opinions of people from various races, religious backgrounds, genders, and social classes is at times overwhelming. The stories these films tell us can completely shift one's belief on anything. Oftentimes in films, and on a variety of media platforms, we see stories which depict the dominant narratives of society. Stories of any kind can harm people and can be used to strip them of their dignity. However, the most powerful stories are the ones which motivate, relate to the outcasts, and help people be proud of themselves. With Hollywood holding the societal influence they do, films which encapsulate these positive and powerful stories are some of the most impactful. Throughout the 3 units of this class, we examined films from elite prep schools, suburban public schools, and urban public schools. All these types of films affected its own audience and told their own stories, and I want to dive into the most powerful and impactful stories that empowered their audience rather than drag anybody down. The first film I will talk about is School Ties. School Ties is a 1992 film which tells a story of a Jewish star athlete, David Green, and his quick rise to the top at a prestigious Catholic prep school called St. Matt's. We see throughout this film David's classmates doing everything they can to break David and his dignity after finding out his religion. They even jeopardize his future when they accuse him of cheating on the biggest exam of the year simply because he was Jewish. He loses his girl, and also the public aura around him just based on these negative stereotypes. This film shares a story of a group of boys who turn on a kid they all formerly loved just because they found out his religion. Despite all these vicious acts against David, he never breaks, and in the end, he comes out on top. The story which School Ties tells empowers people in many different ways. For instance, the Jewish religion is historically degraded and mocked, and is never really portrayed with the hero in a lot of films. This film centers around a Jewish hero and shows how he is bigger than everyone else and what they say to him. It also empowers and builds dignity around anybody who did not fit in with the majority of people in school and were put down because of it. It lets the audience know that they are not alone and, in fact, stronger than they think they are. In the end, the lead bully pays the price, and we see how the people which are usually put down end up on top.
You know something? I'm still gonna get into Harvard. And in 10 years, nobody's gonna remember any of this. You'll still be a goddamn Jew. You'll still be a prick.
Next up is not only my favorite movie from this class, but one of the all-time great films, The Breakfast Club.
06. You have exactly 8 hours and 54 minutes.
The Breakfast Club is a 1985 suburban high school film which gives us a look into the 5 major high school social stereotypes and their interactions with one another during a Saturday school.
And a recluse.
Can't believe
Andy the jock, John Bender the criminal, Claire the pretty and popular girl, Allison the freaking outcast, and Brian the shy nerd all describe real problems they face in school and at home due to their social labels and their backgrounds. This to me is the most important story told, not just because it connects to a variety of different types of people, but it shows all of us not to judge, and in fact, how we can all get along despite our social groups and stereotypes. This film is undoubtedly the most real and relatable. It acknowledges all of the common social labels and stereotypes in a suburban high school film, and at the same time reminds the audience to be more open to one another, not judge one another, and be more empathetic because you never know what goes on behind closed doors. This film stars and represents kids like Brian, John Bender, and Allison in ways most films do not, and even shows Andy and Claire in ways many people would never see them for. It empowers those represented by these characters to be content with who they truly are and encourages them to express themselves. It most importantly motivates the audience to be better in treating one another.
Sincerely yours, The Breakfast Club.
The last film is one we examined in our last section of class, based on an inspiring true story, Freedom Writers. Freedom Writers tells an incredible true story taking place in an urban high school in Long Beach, California. It examines the struggles these minority races face with gang violence and low-income education, and how one teacher helps them see themselves as more than what they were raised to.
There's no place like this out there for us.
This film represents Blacks, Asians, and Latinos as some of its protagonists. Most of the time in film, these minority races are depicted as the villains or criminals. While we do see how these kids are involved in gang violence and make some really bad decisions, it does put us in their shoes for their home lives and shows us how they never really had a choice for any other lifestyle. Miss Gruelle is the hero teacher in this film who does everything to understand her students' lives and uses writing and discussions of old readings to not only give them an alternative hobby to gang violence, but also brings the variety of rival races together in her class.
Four or more.
The story of Freedom Writers empowers and motivates in a few different ways. For instance, it empowers the races represented to see themselves as more than the environment they are raised in and how they are capable of accomplishing anything they want. They are no less of people than the dominant narrative of a protagonist. It also shows the audience to view these types of people with a different connotation than they previously held, how to be more empathetic of people in difficult situations, and how to be grateful for the lives we were all given. These minorities did not choose to be placed in that lifestyle, neither did more fortunate people, so it is not fair to discriminate. Lastly, it motivates people like me who one day hope to educate children. It provides a true narrative about the power of education and how differences in personality, race, and economic status can all find similarities amongst themselves. It shows how one person can truly make the biggest difference, and that is all you need to know when you want to become an educator.
I kept thinking I'd get laughed at. Instead, I'm greeted by a couple of friends who were in my English class last year. And it hits me, Mrs. Gruelle, my crazy English teacher from last year, is the only person that made me think of hope. Talking with friends about last year's English and our trips, I began to feel better. I received my schedule, and the first teacher is Mrs. Gruelle in room 203. I walk into the room and feel as though all the problems in life are not so important anymore. I am home.
By relating to a variety of people from all sorts of races and backgrounds, and contradicting popular societal stereotypes, films and the stories they tell empower and motivate those who view them. Stories such as the ones I just talked about are perfect examples of these powerful films and stories. We hear and see stories every day in so many different ways, and oftentimes they put down and help form negative stereotypes of certain people just because they're entertaining. But stories like the movies I examined are ones I truly believe mean the most because they do their job in making us view one another as equal and help us become better people. It is important to recognize the meaning of these stories and use the lessons in our day-to-day lives. Thank you everyone for watching.